welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission here is simple. We take a stack of sources, articles, and research, and we distill it down into the core knowledge you need, without the jargon and, the information overload.
Exactly.
Today, we are tackling what might be the single most crucial function in modern business, finding out what customers really want. We're moving beyond the comfortable world of assumptions and diving deep, really deep, into the systematic process that global companies use to uncover those genuine, often unarticulated truths about consumer behavior.
That's a great way to frame it. This deep dive is, it's foundational. We are going to examine the entire engine room of marketing strategy.
The engine room? I like that.
Our sources detail the 6 critical discipline steps required to turn noise, that endless flood of market data, into timely, accurate, and most importantly, actionable intelligence.
Actionable. That's the key word.
It is. Whether a company is deciding on a short-run promotional tweak or a long-term multi-million-dollar product launch, this process is their map.
And the map is useless unless you know where you're going and where you've been. So our mission today is really threefold. First, we unpack that rigorous 6-step marketing research process.
Right.
Second, we explore the incredibly diverse toolbox of collection methods from, anthropological observation all the way to deep psychological dives and technological brain scans.
Yeah, the fun stuff.
And finally, we will confront the modern executive's biggest headache: accountability. How do you actually measure the return on a marketing investment using metrics and real-time dashboards?
It's the question every CMO has to answer.
So let's jump in right at the start. It's easy to collect data. You can run a quick online poll, right? But what actually elevates that collection of data points into genuine, usable insight?
That's the critical distinction. Data is a number. Insight is a diagnosis. Our sources define marketing insights as diagnostic information that explains how and why certain effects are observed in the marketplace.
So not just the what, but the why.
Exactly. It gives you the necessary context to interpret past performance and, crucially, to plan the future. If your sales drop by 10%, the data tells you what happened. The insight tells you why it happened and, what to do about it.
And when a company really nails that insight, the results can be transformative. Our sources highlight several masterclasses in this. Let's start with Kimberly-Clark's Huggies diapers. This wasn't a quick 2-week project, was it?
Not at all. This was 3 years of design and research. 3 years.
So what did they do to get past just the obvious survey questions?
They chose deep observation over superficial questioning. They didn't just ask mothers about diaper changing. They assembled a sample of new moms, conducted extensive in-home interviews, and this is the key, they placed motion-activated cameras in the homes.
Wow, motion-activated camera.
Yeah, to analyze the actual mechanics of the diaper changing routines, what was really going on, in the moment.
And the insight they discovered was not something a mother would ever, you'd never think to say it on a standard survey, because it was just friction, just part of life.
Exactly. The core behavioral truth was this. Moms constantly struggled to straighten a squirming baby's legs when trying to put on a diaper. That was the unaddressed pain point in the daily routine. The baby was fine, the diaper was fine, but the process was frustrating.
And that diagnosis, the squirming legs, led directly to a total product overhaul.
It did. It resulted in the Huggies Supreme Natural Fit. It was shaped to follow the baby's curves. They made it thinner using new polymers, a 16% reduction in absorbent width, and they added stretch to the back waistband.
So every feature was a direct answer to that one observation.
Every single one. They even optimized the graphics, realizing mothers used the Winnie the Pooh characters to distract the baby during the change. The innovation was tied directly to solving that one unarticulated struggle.
And the tangible outcome, what did that do for their bottom line?
That research-inspired product innovation boosted Kimberly-Clark's market share by 1 to 2 percentage points.
That's huge in that market.
It is, and it was a significant contributor to the brand's multi-billion-dollar annual sales. That's the financial weight of real observation.
We see that same rigor in the personal care space with Gillette's Venus Razor. They realized, correctly, that a woman's shaving experience is just fundamentally different from a man's.
Right. They didn't just, kink it and shrink it. They committed $300 million to a completely custom development budget.
$300 million. So what were the actionable insights they extracted from all that research?
Well, they got really granular about the environment and the ergonomics. Insight 1. Women changed their grip about 30 times during a single session, often in slippery, wet
Oh,
conditions.
yeah.
The result was the wide, sculpted, rubberized handle for superior grip and control, designed to accommodate all those different hand positions.
And what I found truly brilliant in the sources was insight number 2. It was this anticipatory insight.
Yes, they realized that women are highly reluctant to leave the shower to replace a dull blade. The friction wasn't just the blade, it was the environment.
Right, the hassle.
Yeah, the hassle of it all. So the resulting innovation was an oval-shaped blade in a storage case designed specifically to stick securely to the shower walls and hold spare cartridges. They made the replacement part of the environment, not a break in the routine.
The genius isn't just solving a problem, it's anticipating the psychological barrier of having to step out of the shower mid-shave.
Exactly.
And this depth of understanding allowed them to continue segmenting the market. They later identified 4 distinct segments, right?
They did. The perfect shave seekers, the skin pamperers, the pragmatic functionalists, and the easy seekers.
So they could tailor products for each one.
That segmentation allowed them to launch specialized product lines like Venus Embrace and Venus Breeze, keeping the momentum going year after year. And the strategic outcome is just clear. Venus became the most successful female shaving line globally, capturing over 50% of the market.
So that $300 million investment was cheap in the long run.
It was cheap compared to the lifetime value of that insight, absolutely.
Now, what happens when a management team gets overconfident and, ignores this rigorous process? We have the textbook warning label, Tropicana.
The famous failure to test. Tropicana decided to redesign their flagship orange juice packaging. They dropped the iconic, universally recognized image of an orange skewered by a straw.
Which everyone knew.
Everyone knew it. And they replaced it with a minimalist, modern, generic image.
And they failed to adequately test consumer reactions to this monumental change in brand identity.
And they paid for it immediately. Sales dropped by a punishing 20%.
20%. Ouch.
The market just rejected the new packaging, forcing the company to pull it and reinstate the old, iconic design after only a few months. It's a clear, painful illustration of the financial danger that comes from moving forward without solid, consumer-validated insight.
You may think you know your consumer, but the market will tell you if you're wrong.
The market will always tell you.
With those successes and failures fresh in our minds, let's turn to the formal structure designed to prevent those Tropicana-style gaffes. We need to talk about the systematic process that defines marketing research.
Okay. So at its core, marketing research is the systematic design, collection, analysis, and reporting of data and findings relevant to a specific marketing situation.
And when we say systematic design, you mean this isn't casual Googling or just asking 5 friends?
Not at all. It's a scientific discipline that demands meticulous planning of how the data is collected, because if the design is flawed, the reporting is ultimately useless.
And this isn't just a U.S. phenomenon. Our sources note that global spending on marketing research topped $28 billion back in 2009. So who is actually organizing and executing this massive effort?
It really depends heavily on the company's size and its resources. Giants like Procter & Gamble have robust, dedicated internal departments. P&G calls its function Consumer and Market Knowledge, or CMK. They employ CMK teams globally, dedicated to specific business units, supplemented by a centralized group that handles cross-brand strategic concerns. They really treat knowledge as a primary asset.
But the reality for most companies, especially mid-sized ones, is that they don't have a multi-billion-dollar budget for an internal CMK team. So how do smaller players approach this cost-effectively?
They have to be creative. They can engage university students or professors for affordable, fresh research design. They can tap into crowdcasting, running competitions like an innovation challenge to generate ideas at a fraction of the cost of consultants.
So sort of outsourcing the idea generation.
Exactly. They can use the internet to examine competitors' websites, monitor chat rooms, or leverage their existing marketing partners, ad agencies, distributors who may share accumulated market knowledge across several clients.
And when companies do go external, the outside research firms fall into about 3 categories. We don't need to list every single one, but let's connect the types of firms to the types of problems they solve.
That's the key. If a company like General Mills needed general trends on breakfast consumption across the country data that's collected continuously and sold to multiple clients, they would use a syndicated service research firm like Nielsen or IRI. They buy access to that existing data.
So syndicated firms sell mass-produced intelligence, What about custom work?
For a highly specific problem, like the one we are about to discuss with American Airlines, they would hire a custom marketing research firm. This firm is hired specifically for that project. They design the study, execute the collection, and report the findings customized only to AA's situation.
And the third?
Finally, you have specialty line firms that provide one niche service, like a firm that only handles international field interviewing, for example.
And now that we know who's doing the work, let's structure it.
Right.
We're going to use the classic 6-step marketing research process, and we'll anchor it with our running case study, American Airlines or AA, considering the launch of an in-flight internet service.
The 6 steps are: 1. Define the problem, decision alternatives, and objectives. 2. Develop the research plan. 3. Collect the information. 4. Analyze the information. 5. Present the findings. And 6. Make the decision.
A logical flow.
It is. And the success of the whole process rests on getting step 1 right.
Let's focus on step 1. Define the problem, decision alternatives, and objectives. Our sources emphasize that the most common mistake is defining the problem incorrectly, either too broadly or too narrowly.
Right. Too broad means you'll just drown in data, and much of it will be irrelevant. If AA simply asked, find out everything you can about first-class air travelers' needs, they'd spend millions gathering facts about luggage, lounge quality, seat fabrics.
When the question is specifically about internet access.
Precisely.
And defining it too narrowly is just as dangerous.
It is, because it bakes in assumptions. If the problem is defined as, find out whether enough first-class passengers would pay $25 for internet service for AA to break even in 1 year, the researcher is constrained.
Right. Why $25? Why 1 year?
Exactly. Why must we break even in exactly 1 year? The researcher needs to push back against those managerial biases that are kind of hidden in the problem statement.
So the agreed-upon, robust problem definition for AA after this rigorous scoping was what?
It was: will offering an in-flight internet service create enough incremental preference and profit for American Airlines to justify its cost against other possible investments and service enhancements American might make?
That's a much better question. It's holistic.
It is. It forces the managers to first spell out all potential decisions. Should we offer internet? Which classes get it? What price points should we test? Which trip links are appropriate? Once those decisions are on the table, the specific research objectives naturally fall into place.
So what kind of objectives would the AA research team have pursued?
They needed to quantify demand. So determining the usage rate at different prices, estimating how many extra passengers AA might attract because of the service, assessing the long-term goodwill, and judging the service's relative importance compared to other possible services like an upgraded power plug or enhanced entertainment systems.
And those objectives themselves fall into 3 types of research, depending on what the manager needs to know.
Yes. If AA is completely new to this, they might start with exploratory research just to shed light on the general nature of the problem. What are general attitudes toward in-flight connectivity?
Okay.
Then comes descriptive research, which quantifies the demand, how many passengers would buy at $25. And finally, the most rigorous is causal research, which tests a precise cause and effect relationship, such as, if we lower the price by $10, how much does usage increase?
That sets up step 2. Develop the research plan. This is the planning phase where the financial gatekeeping happens, ensuring the entire project is efficient and cost-effective.
It's the assessment of the value of the information against its cost. For AA, if they estimated that launching the service without research would yield, say, $50,000 in profit.
Okay.
But the research could improve the pricing and promotion strategy to yield $90,000, then the maximum rational expenditure on research is $40,000. If the study costs $50,000, they shouldn't do it, or they need to find a way to scope it down.
Makes sense. Once the budget is greenlit, the research team decides on the necessary data sources. You start with the cheap and easy option, secondary data.
Always start here. Secondary data is information that was already collected for another purpose. It's often low cost and readily available. For example, AA could buy an existing J.D. Power report on business traveler online habits. You checked here first to see if the problem can be solved partially or wholly before resorting to the expensive work.
And if that data is dated, inaccurate, or just incomplete for the specific question, like what will our specific first-class passengers pay for a new service, then you're forced into collecting primary data.
Which is freshly gathered for this specific project. And that leads us directly into the massive toolbox of collection methods.
That's right. If we know we need primary data, we have to decide how we're going to collect it. This brings us to the 5 main research approaches, starting with the most visceral and often the most revealing: observational research.
This is the non-obtrusive gathering of data by just watching consumers in their relevant settings, shopping, consuming, traveling. This is where the magic of discovery happens, where you catch people being their authentic, unguarded selves.
Exactly.
For the AA case, researchers might fly frequently, sitting near passengers or meander in first-class lounges to hear conversations about competitors. But the deepest level of this is ethnographic research. This uses tools from anthropology to literally immerse researchers into consumers' lives to uncover those unarticulated desires.
The friction points people don't even know are there until you solve them. Let's explore these examples because they fundamentally change how companies approach product design. Bank of America used ethnographic research with female baby boomers. How difficult is it to turn what they saw into a massive financial product?
It's incredibly difficult, but so powerful when done correctly. Researchers observed two key behavioral truths. Women often rounded up financial transactions to simplify their bookkeeping, and they found it psychologically difficult to actively set aside savings money.
So this wasn't a stated need, it was an observed habit.
An observed habit. And that observation led directly to the Keep the Change debit card program.
Right.
The card automatically rounded up purchases and transferred the difference to savings. It capitalized on the habit of rounding up and solved the difficulty of saving automatically. The results were monumental. 2.5 million customers enrolled and 3 million new savings accounts opened.
All from that simple observation.
All from that observation.
We saw a similar story with Conagra trying to boost sales for Orville Redenbacher popcorn. It wasn't about the kernels, it was about the experience.
Not at all. 9 months of observing families revealed that the popcorn wasn't just a snack, it was a facilitator of interaction. It was about the shared moment of making and eating it, a social lubricant. And that led directly to the emotional and highly successful tagline, spending time together. That's the power of Orville Redenbacher. It shifted the focus from a product attribute to a consumer benefit, a fundamental insight shift.
And my favorite is the Gatorade example. The design firm initially assumed the 64-ounce jug was a family pack used for mixing or pouring.
But when they shadowed consumers, they watched busy moms, the primary buyers, taking the jug right out of the fridge after a workout and chugging it straight from the container.
So they were using it for themselves.
Right. The observational data overruled the initial biased design assumption, changing the jug's shape from a clunky family pack to a streamlined grab-and-go shape that could be easily gripped with one hand. Ethnography reveals what people actually do, not what they say they do.
Now, let's move to focus group research. Gather 6 to 10 people, give them a moderator, put the managers behind a two-way mirror. This is the classic tool of marketing research.
It's excellent as an initial exploratory step because a skilled moderator can discern underlying motivations and dynamic reactions to stimuli. They are also cost-effective and relatively quick to organize. But the pitfalls, as you noted, are serious. We must never generalize these results because the sample is just too small and not random.
And the validity challenges go right down to human psychology.
Absolutely. People might be trying to maintain a positive self-image in front of the group, or they might unconsciously parrot back what they've heard in advertisements. You also get the loudmouth problem, where one highly opinionated person hijacks the consensus.
Right, I've seen that happen.
Even the environment matters. If the focus group room feels cold and formal like a police interrogation room, participants might become guarded and negative.
The industry is adapting to this, though. We're seeing trends towards smaller, more intimate groups and incorporating pre-session homework like diaries, photography, or even video logs.
Yeah, to enrich the discussion and give the moderator more raw material to work with. And the rise of online focus groups is a major shift. They are less intrusive, faster, and dramatically cheaper, sometimes a fourth of the cost of a traditional group.
So what's the trade-off?
Well, traditional groups still allow for spontaneity and body language interpretation, but online groups remove some of the social pressures and can reach geographically diverse participants instantly. The key takeaway, however, is that a focus group is a chainsaw. Incredibly useful if you know how to wield it, but dangerous if you don't.
Moving on, the third approach is survey research. This is the workhorse tool for quantification assessing knowledge, beliefs, and preferences in the general population.
Surveys can be prepared internally, added to an omnibus survey, which is where multiple companies share the cost, or done through panels. The modern trend is undeniably online, which simplifies administration and collection, but we have to acknowledge the real risk here: survey burnout.
We've all been inundated with surveys that are too long or too frequent.
Precisely. To mitigate this, surveys must be kept short and simple. Companies should contact customers no more than once a month and always offer incentives, even if it's just a small coupon from Jack in the Box or Gap. You have to respect the customer's time if you want honest answers.
The fourth approach, and arguably a more reliable one than surveys, is behavioral research. This looks at traces of actual purchasing behavior.
This is analyzing store scanning data, catalog purchases, website click streams, and customer databases. The key value here is that actual purchases are often far more reliable than stated intentions. For AA, this means rigorously analyzing ticket purchase records and comparing the price sensitivity of different groups based on actual booking behavior, not just what they told a researcher they might pay.
Finally, we have the gold standard for scientific validation: experimental research. This is where we isolate variables to prove cause and effect.
This is the most scientifically valid approach because it's designed to eliminate competing explanations. It requires matched groups, two groups that are statistically similar, and different treatments applied to each group, with rigorous control of extraneous variables.
So applying that to the AA price sensitivity test, how would they structure the experiment to be scientifically valid?
Well, they could choose two identical Chicago-Tokyo flights running on the same day of the week with similar passenger profiles. On Flight A, they charge $25 for the internet service. On Flight B, they charge $15.
Okay.
Assuming no major external factors changed, like a blizzard or a competitor canceling flights, any measurable difference in usage rate could be directly attributed to the price variation. That's pure cause and effect testing in action.
Now that we have the approaches, let's talk about the specific tools, the instruments used for primary data collection, starting with the most common, questionnaires.
Questionnaires are flexible, but they are unforgiving. They require extreme care in development, wording, and debugging. If the question is phrased poorly, the entire dataset is compromised. We broadly categorize them into two types based on how they restrict the answer.
The first type, closed-end questions, specify all possible answers and are easy to tabulate. We're all familiar with multiple choice and Likert scales where you indicate your degree of agreement.
Right. But truly diagnostic research uses tools like the semantic differential. This involves connecting two bipolar words, like large versus small or emotional versus rational, to gauge the subtle emotional nuance of a consumer's perception. These closed-end tools are really efficient for quantification and analysis.
Then you have open-end questions where respondents answer in their own words. These are incredibly useful for exploratory insight into how people think, rather than just how many feel a certain way.
This includes simple things like word association, what comes to mind when I say Amazon Prime, or projective techniques like sentence completion or story completion, where the respondent completes an ambiguous stimulus. The richness of the language provides the insight that the numbers just can't.
And we have to mention the do's and don'ts for questionnaires, which are so often ignored.
The quality of the output depends entirely on the input quality. Avoid bias, never lead the respondent toward a desired answer. Keep questions simple and specific, using memory cues when asking about past behavior. Avoid sophisticated jargon, shorthand, or negatives. Right. And if you are using response bands for sensitive information like income or age, ensure those fixed responses do not overlap, which confuses the respondent and invalidates the data.
Moving past the conscious answers on a questionnaire, we get to qualitative measures which dive deep into the subconscious. This is the realm of psychology and motivation.
The great thing about these methods is that because they aren't direct surveys, people tend to drop their defenses. They aren't trying to sound smart or give the right answer, which makes them crucial as an exploratory first step. Consumer behavior often diverges wildly from their stated survey answers, so these methods fill that gap.
And this leads us to the most intriguing tool in our sources, the Zaltman Metaphor Elicitation Technique, or ZMET. This moves into the subconscious realm and fundamentally shifts how we think about product association.
ZMET is fascinating because it's based on the linguistic assumption that most of our thoughts are unconscious and shaped by 7 universal deep metaphors, like balance, transformation, journey, and connection.
So wait, how does it work?
The method asks participants to select 12 personal images from magazines, family albums, or the internet to represent their feelings about a specific product or brand.
So the images aren't about the product itself, but what the product feels like to them.
Precisely. Through a deep one-on-one interview, the researcher probes the meaning of these images, ultimately leading the participant to create a collage that communicates their subconscious thoughts. For a DuPont pantyhose study, for example, the pictures selected showed a deep love-hate relationship.
Love-hate? How?
Well, images included steel bands strangling trees, suggesting tightness and constriction, but also tall flowers in a vase, suggesting the woman felt tall, thin, and sexy.
It captures the contradiction of the product experience. And for Motorola's proposed security system.
Researchers were struck by the sheer number of images of dogs that were selected. The subconscious connection wasn't safety or technology, it was companionship, protection, and loyalty. That insight allowed Motorola to position the security system not just as a piece of hardware, but as a silent, ever-present guardian, a companion.
Other qualitative approaches, of course, include the ones we mentioned, word associations and projective techniques, but I want to focus on laddering.
Laddering is brilliant because it forces the researcher and the consumer past the superficial. It uses a series of why questions to link a product's attributes to a consumer's deeper life goals, revealing the brand essence.
Can you give an example?
Sure. For a Nokia phone, the laddering sequence might go, why buy Nokia? It's well-built. That's the attribute. Why is well-built important? It suggests reliability, functional benefit. Why is reliability important? Colleagues can reach me easily. Emotional benefit. Why must you always be available? So I can help them if they're in trouble. Brand essence.
So the brand, ultimately, helps this person feel like a good Samaritan.
Exactly. That's the deep motivation.
Finally, we have the cutting edge. Technological devices for measuring physiological responses. This moves from observation and questioning to straight-up biology.
Historically, we used galvanometers to measure emotion or eye cameras to track visual attention on an advertisement. Today, this has evolved into neuromarketing, utilizing sophisticated equipment like skin sensors, EEG, and fMRI to monitor brain activity in response to marketing stimuli.
This sounds almost invasive, but the insights are profound. Neuromarketing research has repeatedly shown that purchase decisions are often a largely unconscious, habitual process, defying the purely rational decision-making model we often assume.
And they can correlate specific brain activity with the response. Heightened activity in the left prefrontal cortex, for instance, correlates with an approach response, an attraction to the stimulus. Conversely, a spike in the right prefrontal cortex indicates revulsion.
So they can literally see attraction or revulsion in the brain.
They can literally map it out via blood flow and electricity, what parts of the brain are activated by a logo or a price point.
But this isn't a silver bullet. There are major caveats to adopting this technology.
Absolutely. Neurological research is prohibitively costly, often running $100,000 or more per project. The devices can be obtrusive, requiring participants to wear skull caps or be placed in expensive MRI machines. And there are ongoing ethical concerns that this knowledge could lead to marketing manipulation if not used carefully. It should be used to augment, not replace, traditional research.
Before we leave the planning stage, we need the sampling plan and contact methods. The sampling plan requires 3 specific managerial decisions.
First, the sampling unit. Whom should we survey? For the AA case, do we look at all first-class travelers or only those traveling on business? You need a sampling frame so everyone in the target population has a known chance of being selected.
Okay, so who to ask?
Second, sample size. How many people should we survey? While large samples are more reliable, professional research often shows that samples of less than 1% of the population can provide good reliability if the procedure is credible.
And third, the sampling procedure. How are they chosen?
You want probability sampling because it allows marketers to calculate confidence limits for sampling error. This gives the results validity and makes them truly representative of the larger population.
Regarding contact methods, we see the rapid decline of traditional approaches in the developed world. Mail is slow, and telephone is challenging in the U.S. due to the Do Not Call registry.
But internationally, the dynamic is shifting. The rapid rise in mobile phone penetration in developing markets like Africa allows researchers to utilize text messaging to convene virtual focus groups, reaching rural and previously inaccessible populations cost-effectively.
Personal interviewing is the most versatile but also the most extensive, offering arranged interviews or quick, non-probability intercepts like at a shopping mall. But the clear winner in speed, cost, and versatility is online contacts.
Online methods are inexpensive. 20% to 50% less than traditional methods, and incredibly fast, with 75% to 80% response rates within 48 hours. Moreover, the honesty levels are often higher because respondents are in private.
And we are seeing companies use this for co-creation. Think about Local Motors, which crowdsources its design ideas, letting anyone upload concepts for new vehicles, with registered experts voting on the designs.
And Del Monte tapped its 400-member online community, I love my dog, to develop a new breakfast treat, Snossage Breakfast Bites. They moved from concept to launch in half the usual time because the insights were instantly available and validated within the community. This blending of online panels and communities is accelerating product development velocity across the board.
However, online research isn't perfect. What are the structural disadvantages?
You risk skewed and small samples, partly due to the digital divide in lower income or rural areas. Online panels can suffer from excessive turnover or boredom, requiring significant management overhead. Also, technological inconsistencies, such as browser variations, can skew the way stimuli are presented, which could potentially invalidate the results of a visual test.
We've designed the study, chosen the instruments, and planned the sample. Now we move quickly through the final execution stages, starting with step 3, collect the information. This is where theory meets reality, and it is often the most expensive and error-prone phase.
It is.
So why is it the most fraught phase?
Because of human factors. We deal with 4 major problems. Respondents who are inaccessible, people who refuse to cooperate, those who give biased or dishonest answers, and sadly, interviewers who are biased or dishonest themselves.
And when data collection goes global, the issue of international consistency becomes a major obstacle.
It does. Take the Leica surveying and engineering case. They initially deployed English-only surveys for competitive intelligence, believing, wrongly, that all their business was conducted in English.
But it wasn't.
Not at all. Their in-country sales reps primarily used native languages. When they redeployed the survey in local languages like Spanish and German, the response rate doubled almost overnight. It just proved that neglecting cultural and linguistic consistency is a guaranteed way to waste your research budget.
Step 4. Analyze the information is where we shift from raw collection to interpretation.
This involves basic tabulation and developing summary measures like averages and dispersion, but true value comes from applying advanced statistical techniques and decision models. We test hypotheses like, will the price change significantly increase revenue? And apply sensitivity analysis to see how the results change under different assumptions.
Moving to step 5. Present the findings. The traditional role of the researcher used to be handing over a thick binder of data. Now, the mandate is different.
Today, the researcher must move into a proactive consulting role. They have to translate the data into clear, actionable recommendations. One of the most effective tools for bringing dry data to life for internal teams is the use of personas.
Personas are hypothetical, detailed profiles of a target customer. Tell us how these profiles help a marketing team.
They serve as an archetype. They are complete with names, photos, bios, attitudes, and behavioral information. Personas ensure that internal marketing and design teams fully understand who they are targeting. It prevents a designer from relying on their own personal experience. Chrysler, for example, used personas like Roberto Moore and Jenny Severson to guide the design of specific vehicles.
And Best Buy's Geek Squad famously used 5 personas to guide their web redesign.
They did. Jill, the suburban mom, Charlie, the 50-plus male needing an unintimidating guide, Daryl, the savvy experimenter, Louis, the small business owner, and Nick, the prospective agent.
So each person had a different need.
Exactly. By using these archetypes, they realized Charlie needed reassurance, so they added a prominent 911 button to the website. Nick, the enthusiast, needed technical depth, so they created a geek channel. Personas humanized the data.
So, wrapping up the AA case, what were the summary findings presented to management that led to the final decision?
The key findings were highly quantitative, but focused on incremental profit. The analysis found 3 things. 1, the chief reason for use was staying connected for email, requiring expensive broadband. But the good news was that corporate accounts were likely to pay for it. 2, pricing. The $25 fee yielded more revenue, about $125 per flight, than the $15 fee, which was about $90 per flight. So at $25, the estimated annual revenue for that Chicago-Tokyo route was around $45,000. Given the $90,000 cost per plane for installation, the break-even was projected at 2 years.
And the third point.
Crucially, the non-financial impact was significant. It would strengthen AA's image as innovative, add new passengers through preference, and build long-term goodwill.
That sets up step 6. Make the decision. Managers weigh the evidence, assess their confidence level in the research, and make the call. This decision-making is often supported by a marketing decision support system, MDSS.
An MDSS is a coordinated collection of data, tools, and techniques for gathering, interpreting, and applying relevant information to marketing action. It helps managers move systematically from the initial evidence gathered in Step 3 to the final action in Step 6.
But even with all these systems, companies still confuse robust information with genuine insight. We have to bring up the infamous Star Wars gaffe from the 1970s.
It's the perfect cautionary tale. A film research executive predicted failure for Star Wars based on data. His analysis pointed out that post-Vietnam audiences dealing with the fallout of Watergate prized realism over science fiction, and the title included the politically charged word war.
The information all pointed to rejection.
It did. And of course, the film grossed over $4.3 billion. The failure wasn't the data, it was the interpretation. Exactly. He delivered information, but missed the deeper qualitative insight. That Star Wars was a fundamentally human story, a universal narrative of love, conflict, loss, and redemption that simply happened to be set in space. The human element transcended the negative genre associations. It's a perfect reminder that data analysis shouldn't strip the human story down to dry statistics.
So what characterizes good marketing research that avoids that kind of failure? Our sources list 7 key characteristics that act as a checklist.
They must include using the scientific method observation, hypothesis, and testing, demonstrating research creativity like the Cheetos researchers who dressed as Chester Cheetah to gauge street reactions, which resulted in a double-digit sales increase, using multiple methods to cross-validate findings, recognizing the interdependence of models and data, rigorously assessing the value and cost of information, maintaining a healthy skepticism toward managerial assumptions, and maintaining an ethical focus throughout the process.
Here's where the CFO gets involved. Measuring marketing productivity and accountability. Marketers face intense, sustained pressure to provide clear, quantifiable evidence of how their often massive expenditures contribute directly to financial objectives. That is the constant ROI concern.
It's challenging because of the time lag. Marketing inputs, the expenditure on a campaign, are short-term, but the outputs, brand awareness, loyalty, goodwill, are long-term, manifesting over months or even years.
Plus, external and internal changes make it incredibly hard to isolate the effect of one specific marketing activity.
Exactly.
To tackle this, companies use 2 complementary approaches: marketing metrics and marketing mix modeling.
Marketing metrics are the quantifiable, specific measures used to track and interpret performance. Rhonda Shustine, the CMO of Mary Kay, for example, focuses on long-term brand strength awareness, consideration, trial, and immediate, program-specific metrics like ad impressions, web traffic, and conversion rates.
And these metrics are essential for managerial validation. Look at the Service Credit Union case in Canada.
They used metrics to validate their investment in the Young and Free Alberta program, which featured a young spokesperson engaging the 17 to 25-year-old crowd via blogs, videos, and social media.
And the numbers proved it worked.
They did. The program generated over 107 million media impressions and thousands of new accounts.
The second approach, marketing mix modeling, is far more technical and data-intensive.
This is a complex statistical analysis that blends data from diverse sources, scanner data, shipment data, pricing records, media, and promotion spending, to estimate the causal relationships between marketing activities and outcomes like sales or market share. It's popular with large packaged goods marketers like P&G and Clorox, who use it primarily to optimize media allocation and identify budget waste.
But modeling, despite its mathematical rigor, has recognized shortcomings that smart CMOs have to address.
Wharton's Dave Reibstein highlights 3 main issues. First, the modeling often focuses narrowly on incremental growth, the immediate impact, and tends to ignore baseline sales or crucial long-term effects like brand equity growth.
Okay, so it's short-sighted.
In a way, yes. Second, it struggles to integrate soft metrics like customer satisfaction or overall brand equity because they are hard to quantify and put into the model.
And the third shortcoming often reveals a significant blind spot in spending.
That's right. The models generally fail to incorporate metrics related to competitors, the trade, like retailers and distributors, or the sales force. And this is critical because in many industries, the spending on trade promotion or the sales team often outweighs the entire advertising budget. If the model ignores those largest expenditures, it's giving incomplete strategic advice.
So if modeling struggles with soft metrics and competitor data, what does a smart CMO need to be doing to fill those gaps and get a complete picture?
They need synthesis, and that synthesis happens on the marketing dashboard. The dashboard is the visual display of real-time indicators, ensuring proper functioning, much like the instrument panel in a plane. Marketing controllers use sophisticated business intelligence software to synthesize all this internal and external data.
And the dashboard structure typically relies on 2 key scorecards that feed it input: providing the necessary strategic balance.
First, the customer performance scorecard. This tracks customer-based measures year over year. The percentage of new, lost, or win-back customers, repurchase rates, brand recall, awareness levels, and perceived quality relative to key competitors. This ensures you're not just chasing volume, but health.
And the second scorecard looks outward at the entire ecosystem.
The Stakeholder Performance Scorecard tracks the satisfaction of crucial constituencies that support the business employees, suppliers, distributors, retailers, and stockholders. A company might have great sales metrics, but if its supplier satisfaction score is plummeting, that signals a long-term risk.
Pat LaPointe outlines 4 pathways that these dashboards must synthesize for comprehensive accountability.
1. The Customer Metrics Pathway, which tracks the prospect-to-customer journey from awareness to preference to trial, focusing on customer experience and perceived value. 2. The Unit Metrics Pathway, focusing on efficiency, such as sales by geography and marketing cost per unit for margin optimization. 3. The Cash Flow Metrics Pathway, which focuses on short-term returns and program campaign ROI, the immediate impact. And 4. The Brand Metrics Pathway, which tracks the longer-term impact via brand equity, assessing perceptual health and overall financial health. Dashboards help management see the subtle interconnected links between these 4 worlds.
To wrap up our deep dive, let's look at 2 companies that are renowned for achieving genuine excellence in research application, starting with IDEO, the largest U.S. design consultancy, responsible for iconic products like the Apple Mouse, TiVo, and the Swiffer Sweeper.
IEO operates on a philosophy called design thinking, based on a human-centered methodology. Their core principle is designing outside in, starting with the observed human problem, not the product or technology. They uncover deep insights to create products consumers actively want because they solve an unaddressed pain point.
And they have an intense, hands-on toolbox for achieving these deep dives.
Yes. They use shadowing and interviews where their human factors team films consumers during product use, conducting in-depth interviews afterward. They use behavioral mapping, creating a photographic log of people in an environment, a lounge, a waiting room over several days to identify improvement areas. They even use camera journals where participants record visual impressions of a product category themselves.
But the most important element of their methodology is the constant prototyping, even with clients.
That's the core of their culture. They test and improve continuously, and they encourage clients, even senior executives, to participate directly. That prototyping approach instantly revealed a flaw for AT&T executives testing location software. The senior executives themselves couldn't use the software efficiently. One even had to call his wife to Google something for him because he couldn't navigate the interface.
Oh.
That personal frustration, the executive realization that the software was not user-friendly, led immediately to a crucial, costly interface redesign.
And this methodology transformed customer experiences, like for Courtyard by Marriott.
IDEO's observational research revealed that younger business travelers disliked the lack of activity, the generic decor, and the poor food options available. It was an experience gap,
which resulted in a major overhaul. Warm, modern decor, advanced technology like Wi-Fi and flat screens, 247 coffee shop-style cafes, and outdoor hangout spots with fire pits. They redefined the entire value proposition, encapsulated in the new tagline, Courtyard, it's a new stay.
Our second example is Intuit, the company behind Quicken, QuickBooks, and TurboTax. Founded by a former P&G employee, their key early insight was that simplicity, not in-depth accounting analysis, was the key to success. They obsessed over the user who needed to automate bill paying without becoming an accountant.
And Intuit commits roughly 20% of its net revenues to consumer research annually. That's a staggering level of investment. What are their research levels?
They prioritize observing the user in their natural habitat. They conduct site visits where researchers literally observe product use in the individual's true home or work environment. They also run lab studies in controlled settings and remote studies over the phone and internet. Their primary marketing focus, built on these insights, remains positive word of mouth. 8 out of 10 customers bought due to word of mouth.
This level of customer obsession translates into their rigorous approach to social media monitoring.
They've become highly adept at it. Their social media metrics classify posts according to velocity, how quickly the information is shared, share of voice, voice quality, positive versus negative talk, and sentiment, the overall meaning.
And this had real results.
It did. This integration of real-time social feedback with their deeper research allowed them to integrate social networks with a small business site, which increased QuickBooks sales by 57% in just 12 weeks. They blend deep understanding with rigorous, real-time measurement perfectly.
So to synthesize this deep dive, we started by defining marketing insight, the diagnostic truth behind consumer behavior, exemplified by the operational success of Huggies and Venus, and the hard lesson of Tropicana.
We then walk through the rigorous six-step scientific process, using the American Airlines case, to illustrate how to scope the problem, design the experiment, and analyze the financial findings. And we explored the vast toolbox of collection methods, from ethnographic shadowing and the psychological probing of ZMT to technological neuromarketing scans.
And we concluded with a modern imperative: accountability. Marketers must rigorously quantify their results. This requires blending the traditional financial outcomes with sophisticated metrics and dashboards that track both short-term cash flow and the long-term health of brand equity and customer perception.
Throughout this discussion, we've seen a constant tension: the clash between methods that rely on reliable, quantifiable statistics and modeling, and methods that seek a deep, in-depth, often unconscious understanding of human motivation.
The classic danger, as we saw with the Star Wars failure, is having all the data points but missing the script's heart.
You can optimize the numbers pathologically, but if you haven't grasped the human truth, the strategy will fail.
So what does this all mean for you? If marketing success requires both rigorous quantitative measurement, using sophisticated MBSS and dynamic metric-rich dashboards, and deep qualitative insight using techniques like ZMT and immersive ethnography, how can organizations best structure their research teams to ensure neither the numbers nor the human story is ever ignored? What stands out to you as the most effective structure to blend those two critically different worlds?
Food for thought until our next deep dive.
See you soon.